We are your home theater and AV questions answered. This is AVRant. Want your home theater or AV question answered by Tom and Rob? Send it to question@avrant.com. Welcome to another edition of AVRant. I'm Tom Andry, and I'm here with
Rob H. This is AVRant. It's your home theater and AV questions answered. And if my email and the online ordering thing are to be believed, then I think I actually got one of the very rare pre-orders for the auto-converting Optimus Prime collectible that is like harder to get than a PS5 these days. So, yeah. I'm very excited if that actually
probably
happens.
plays more games than the PS5. That's why it's harder to get.
It is ridiculous. It is crazy expensive, but people are already scalping them for $2,000 plus. So I have no intention of keeping it in the box as a collectible. I'm like, no, I'm opening this thing and playing with it. I don't care. So yeah, I'm the only type of person who should be allowed to buy it.
I still have that Star Wars pop-up book.
Star Wars pop-up book, okay.
It came out a couple of decades ago, or maybe last decade or something. I don't know, a long time ago, and it's still in the plastic.
Nah.
I haven't opened it, but somebody else had one and he opened it, so I got to look at it. So it's fine. I don't know. I'm with you. Buy it, play with it,
Yep.
Enjoy it. Bob's your uncle.
It's very expensive to play around with, but that's the way it goes. Yay, our camera switch happened. It has to happen. It's like a weekly
has to
event
happen
now.
At least once, yes. Let me just unplug this. It's literally not. I mean, it's not the connection. The connection is perfectly fine. Like I can feel it.
Uh-huh.
And then when I jiggle the cord on both ends, nothing happens.
Okay.
So it's not the cable. So I don't know what to tell you.
Good times. Well, we got it out of the way. Hopefully that's it. Welcome to AV Rant. Welcome to the YouTube video if you're watching it. And there you go.
That's right. So what's exciting in your life, Rob? Anything exciting in your life?
Last week was a pretty good week. Got all our relatives and my own taxes done in that. So we're before the deadline. That's a relief getting that done.
Okay.
Yeah, and yeah, Optimus Prime ordered. It's actually going to get shipped to Tom because they'll only ship it to U.S. shipping addresses. They won't ship it to Canada directly. So,
and since I know he's going to play with it, I'm going to play with it.
Oh no!
No, I can't open it here. If I open it here, my children will break it.
Exactly.
So
it'll get sold on eBay before I ever touch it.
That's right, Rob. I didn't get your Optimus Prime never showed up, but here's a little money for your trouble.
It's a lot of money.
Here's what you spent plus 25%. Because I'm such a good friend.
Yes.
All right, this is AV Rant, the podcast that answers your home theater and AV questions. Get your questions answered. All you have to do is ask. You ask by emailing us at question@avrant.com. That's how you get your question on the podcast. Everything else is optional. You can go to avrant.com, leave us a comment there, facebook.com/avrantpodcast, youtube.com/avrant. Go to, if you want to email us directly, rob@avrant.com. His Twitter's @firstreflect. I'm Tom at avrant.com. My Twitter's @avrant_Tom. I do check that email occasionally. My life has changed in such a way that I don't live on my laptop anymore.
Okay.
All that email goes to my laptop.
Right.
So I check it periodically instead of daily the way I used to. Because now I work at a desktop most of the time. And you say, why don't you put the email on the desktop? I don't want it on the desktop. That's why. I don't want it there. I don't want it to be there. So let's thank our listeners of the week. To become a listener of the week, you support the podcast in some way. One of the ways you can do that is going to avrant.com and click on the Buy Us a Cup of Coffee link. That'll send you to a PayPal donation site. So we want to thank Bob for doing that this week. Thank you very much, Bob.
Yeah, Bob, thank you for that PayPal donation. Really do appreciate that.
Yeah. Another way you can support us financially is going to patreon.com/avrant podcast, where you can sign up to be a subscribing contributor. I don't know. Monthly donator.
Yes.
That keeps continue on an ongoing basis. So that every month Patreon will take a little money from you and give most of it to us. So we have 126 patrons this month, including Max, who's part of the 2 Hour Plus Club, and Bertrand. So thank you very much. Our 126 patrons, including Max and Bertrand.
That is right. Patreon.com/AVRant podcast. If you'd like to sign up for an automatic monthly donation, a voluntary subscription, if you'd like to think of it that way. 126 patrons over there. Max and Bertrand, thank you both very much for being two of them.
So if you can't support us financially, find some way to support us and let us know what you did. One of the ways you can support me, particularly, is by taking pictures of your gear or theater and sending them to me with a disclaimer that says that I can use them in perpetuity over at avgadgets.com, where I am the editor-in-chief. If I choose to use your pictures, I promise my plan is always to use them in a positive way.
Okay.
To it, you know what I mean? I'm not going to be like, look at this piece of crap theater.
It won't be for making fun of purposes. Yes, that would be the hope, for sure.
Yeah, so if your picture includes 2 subs, I might use your image in a 2-sub article. But if your picture includes 2 subs and also a cabinet that has gear inside, that has all the speakers inside, the front 3 speakers in front and inside the cabinet, I might use it in the cabinet article, as well. So, I try to do that. But so thank you to Michael and Reginald, who sent me some photos with permission this week. So thank you very much, Mike and Reggie.
Yes, Michael and Reginald, thank you for giving Tom permission to use those photos until the internet comes to an end.
That's right. Reggie or Nald. I wonder if you would go by Nald. I think that would be hard to say. I don't think so. All right, Kris. Kris bought his son an AV receiver from Accessories for Less, and he let them know that we sent him their way, so that's how he's helped out the podcast. John mentioned us in his user review of the Emotiva BasX A300 2-channel amp, and also let Rhythmic know he bought a second LV12 sub because we always say to have 2 subs. And Clara tagged Gary Kubian on Twitter, that's the CEO of SVS, you're well known, and begged him to consider buying the Harmony division from Logitech, since SVS is actively growing their accessories lineup. He responded with just 2 words: very interesting.
Yeah. Ellipses.
I don't think they're going to do it.
Dot.
I don't think so. So thank you to, let me scroll back up, Kris, John, and Clara for talking us up to Accessories for Less, Emotiva and Rhythmic from John, and Clara to SVS, who definitely knows who we are.
Yeah, Kris, John, Clara, thank you very much for the support in those ways, talking us up to various retailers and brands. And I don't know. I mean, hey, if the AVRant community can convince Gary to consider buying the Harmony division, that'd be quite the accomplishment. Who knows? I
think it would need to be, I don't know. How would they do that?
I don't know. I have zero business.
Harmony by SVS. I mean, how would they even name it? I think Harmony by SVS.
Or I mean, if they bought the whole back end and that, they could rename it something new. They're under no obligation. I don't know if they developed their own remote control from the ground up. I mean, it seems like it would be easier to start from where Harmony is leaving off.
Yeah.
So
I don't know. Anyways, we also got some notes of gratitude for keeping the podcast going during this hopefully waning pandemic from Kris, Greg, Bob, Michael, Jason, who says our weekly rantings are something he looks forward to since he's stuck in lockdown in Ontario, Canada. Sorry, buddy. Bertrand, John, and Martin in Ireland, which almost certainly isn't pronounced Martin. And I'm definitely saying it wrong. I don't know.
Kris, Greg, Bob, Michael, Jason, Bertrand, John, and Martin, thank you all very much for those notes of gratitude and notes of encouragement. It is appreciated in this time. And yes, I mean, I want to say, congratulations to the United States in general, because having vaccines now open for all people over the age of 16, that is exceedingly impressive, the speed with which your country has done that. And yes, I am envious. I hope we can get there.
You should hear the people complain about it.
In my province of British Columbia, we've opened up registration to everyone over 18, but the actual appointments for getting vaccinated are still going throughout June at this point.
You just don't have that many people. I don't understand what the problem is up there.
Supply. Ours is supply.
Well, I mean, we're sucking it all up down there. It's just getting... we are like a vaccine vacuum cleaner. I don't think it's right. I mean, it's very hard for me to complain about it because, I'm benefiting from it. But it, it certainly doesn't seem right that
I have no problem with the U.S. saying those stuff we manufacture in the U.S. that goes to artists, citizens first. I'm like, good, get it done as quickly as possible, then please share. Please share after that.
Well, that doesn't explain what's going on in India. India manufactures it and ships it all out. I'm like, wait a second. You got 1.2 billion people. You all need to get on it. All right, what do I know about global vaccination supply chain?
I would not
economics?
Want to run it. I know that. That's all I am confident in saying.
As that you put that job on your resume, people are going to have some questions for you. Like, what? All right. We've got some news here. This comes from our listener, Carl. Stewart Film Screen released a new acoustically transparent material. This is the Harmony G2. Of course, it's called Harmony.
As the name they gave it, we can't do anything about that.
They're like, Logitech's not going to sue us now. Going out with Harmony. We've been sitting on this name for a while. Anyways, it's a woven material which is slightly unusual for Stewart, as they've mostly offered their perforations, solutions for acoustically transparent application. What sets Harmony G2 apart a bit from other woven acoustically transparent screen material is that it can be used with ultra short throw projectors. So the projector's in the room, but the projector is on a little table in front of the screen, but the speakers are behind the screen because
it solves the whole issue of the ultra short throw projector going where your center speaker typically would go, just below the screen. So now the center speaker can go behind the screen and higher and fire over the ultra short throw projector. It solves that little issue.
Yeah, I'm sure it's a much more affordable solution than just buying a piece of furniture that does it for you. But whatever. It is not ambient light rejecting, so it can work with them, but not very well. But the weave is tight enough that it allows the projector lens to be at a UST or ultra short throw distance, which is not typically the case. Being Stewart, they focused on absolute color accuracy with the least amount of audio attenuation. And if you have to ask the price, you're probably not in the market for a Stewart screen. Anyways, that's the thing.
Yup.
You could have a custom built piece of furniture that would house your speakers and be perfectly. Don't do that, by the way. Don't ever buy custom furniture that houses your speakers. That's a terrible idea. But you could have a cabinet built. It'd probably be cheaper than buying this screen. But whatevs. I mean,
it exists. We know of it. It might solve a problem for somebody. Good to know about.
There's somebody out there buying it right now.
Yeah.
There's somebody who's like,
for sure.
Their custom installers like, this one's the best one. It's brand new on the market. It's the best one. Yeah, I'll take it.
There you go.
Put it right next to my Mealy coffee maker and Bose speakers.
Probably.
Those are the best. This also comes from Carl. Carl, by the way, Carl's on top of the news.
Yes.
Let me tell you.
Don't have to worry about the news.
We don't have to worry about the news because Carl's hitting us up. And believe me, he's not just hitting us up. He's hitting all these podcasts.
That's right.
He gets us into all of them. So thank you, Carl. You're a valuable resource to us all. Sony has completed the refresh of the projector lineup that began late last year. Back then, the $10,000 VW715 and the $20,000 VW915 replaced the 695 and 885 respective, whatever, who cares. They are introducing their $40,000 laser-driven VW1025 to replace the 995. These numbers make no dang sense. Other than they end in 5.
Well, everything goes up by 30. They literally added 30.
That's
except
dumb.
for the 885, that one they added 40.
You see, except for, and then it doesn't work.
Well, I mean,
these are dumb numbers.
Whatever, that's what they are. It's the VW1025 now.
Whatever.
$40,000 laser.
40 grand. Yes, everybody. Well, you could have a Lexus or you could have a projector. Which one? I would probably take the projector, honestly. I have some friends with Lexuses, and they're like, it's really expensive to fix this thing. Yeah, you think? And the one that most of our audience will care about is the VW325. I don't know how you're going to be able to live with yourself when there's a 1025 out there when it's a 325. Anyways, this one's to replace the 295. Add 30, see?
That's right.
Add 30. It's maths. It's the math. I want to say, as a U.S. citizen, I resent the fact that people in the UK can say maths and not sounding like they don't know how to do plurals. I love saying maths. I think maths is a fantastic thing to say.
I think there actually is a distinction between when you're supposed to use maths versus math, and I don't know that distinction, so I won't.
I don't care what it is. I just want to say maths like all the time, and I'm resentful that I can't because people are here like, "What are you talking about? Oh my god, you're stupid." Like, listen, maths. All right, the 295 held the distinction of being the only XRD, so it's SXRD, liquid crystal on silicone, genuine 4K resolution projector under $5,000. The new VW325 costs $5,500, so no longer under $5,000. So it's still at least expensive, but it's now $500 more than the last one. It benefits from an upgraded lens and the current X1 for projectors processor. So whatever, new chip. The lens is motorized, but it does not have lens memory. So you don't have to actually touch the little knob, but it won't do stuff. And all of these new projector models are still HDMI 2.0. Jeez.
Yes.
Well, I mean, do they really need to be 2.0?
Well, 4K 120. That'd be kind of nice.
Yeah, whatever.
They aren't.
Perhaps our biggest criticism is Sony's intentionally confusing dynamic HDR enhancer feature, despite the purposefully misleading name and even saying they process HDR content scene by scene. None of these Sony projectors have frame-by-frame dynamic tone mapping. Instead, they still rely on HDR10 metadata. And based on that, they simply adjust their tone mapping and video processing for, say, 1,000 nit master content versus 4,000 nit master content. It is in no way equal to what JVC is offering.
Yes.
But, it's full 4K.
Oh, it's full 4K. It is HDR. There is tone mapping, and the tone mapping does change based on the metadata off of the disc or off of the content. So it does have different tone curves for different mastered HDR as long as that's correctly encoded in the metadata. But I mean, I know DJ asked about this. I know at least one other person brought it up, and because I don't blame anybody. Sony is doing this on purpose, putting this dynamic HDR enhancer thing in there. Because, I mean, that's been JVC's big selling point for the past couple of years, is having that frame by frame. It is not frame by frame dynamic tone mapping. They are not analyzing the incoming signal. They are not creating a histogram and going off of that and ignoring the metadata, which is what the JVC and the LG displays can do. This one is still, it's regular tone mapping. And when they talk about it being able to adjust scene by scene, that is just the normal dynamic contrast setting that every display has had forever and just applies an S-curve to the gamma to make the darks look darker and the brights look brighter. It is absolutely not the same thing as dynamic tone mapping. It is not that. So it's important to make that distinction. Given these prices, given that the price of this has now gone up, and I mean, yes, the retail price on the JVC NX5 is $6,000, but everywhere that sells it for $5,500. So now they're the same price. The JVC has an advantage. I can't say I'm super hyped on what Sony has done here. Plus, that NX5 has lens memory in case you want to do the whole constant image height thing. So there you go. That's my take. Sony, do better. That's my request.
But they're like, but we don't have to.
That's true. They don't have to. Yeah.
Because they want their TV to match their projector to match their microwave or whatever it is that they have. That's also a Sony. It just drives me nuts. All right, Emotiva has introduced the second generation of their BasX amplifiers because they love it when I say it that way.
They do.
Wattage per channel has gone up, so have prices. There are new 3, 4 channel models, along with the second gen versions of the 2-channel, 5-channel, and 7-channel models. They all remain Class A, B with linear power supplies, unbalanced with RCA inputs only, which is perfectly fine as far as I'm concerned. So there's 150 watts by 2 channels is the BasX A300.
That's the one that's going out. But that used to be $400, 150 watts times 2.
Okay, is replaced by the 160 watt 2-channel BasX A2. I liked it better when they used to name amps in such a way as you could tell how many channels and how many watts were in the amp by the number.
Well, A2 is pretty easy. It's the 2-channel. And that one gets 160 watts now, so it's 10 watts more per channel, but the price went up to $450. So it's a $50 increase in price.
So the 140 watt 3-channel BasX A3, because it's 3 channels, goes for $500. The 4-channel, which is 100 watts, A4 is also $500, but it's $40 less per channel. I mean, $40 less.
40 watts
40
less
watts less per channel. I'll get there. So there's the 80 watt by 5 BasX A500 is being replaced with the 95 watt, so 15 more watts, by 5-channel BasX A5. So the 5-channel, $600.
It used to be $500,
watts.
So that one went up $100, but you're getting 15 watts more per channel for the 5-channel one. Yeah.
And the 80 watts by 7-channel BasX A700 is being replaced by the 90 watts, so 10 more watts by 7-channel BasX A7 for $700. So $100 more, 10 more watts per channel, 7-channel. So these are really inexpensive. These are not that expensive amps. As amps go, these are not that expensive.
They are still actually like out of the ones that are clearly targeted at the home market, no fans inside, designed to take the RCA level output coming out of, say, an AV receiver that has a full suite of pre-outs. They are the least expensive still. So for the full multi-channel ones. But they don't have XLR inputs the way that the Outlaw Audio ones do. But yeah, the wattage is going up, the prices are going up somewhat. It all makes sense. But that's the new lineup. BasX from Emotiva.
Yeah. So SVS introduced a new SoundPath tri-band wireless audio adapter, which SVS doesn't put out like press releases anymore. I don't think, because I don't ever get them.
It's on their website,
and I know, but that's not the same thing. Anyways, I found that through Facebook. It's $200. Okay, so this is a wireless adapter that most people on this podcast will be interested in it for the subwoofer.
Right.
But it's a full range signal, just like their other one, which is the SoundPath wireless audio adapter. I think the tri-band is the only difference in the name. The other one is $120. This is $200. The difference is the tri-band part of it. And 3 bands are 2.4 gigahertz, 5.2 gigahertz, and 5.8 gigahertz, and it switches automatically between them in order to, deal with interference.
That's right.
So I think and the other thing is it's got like a ridiculous range. It's like the other one I think was like 60 feet line of sight, and this one's like 130 feet line of sight.
Something like that. Yeah. It was pretty sure it was like double, double line of sight.
It's a little bit more. It was a little bit more than double, and it's nuts. But so just last week we had a question of somebody who's like, I can't get this thing to. So this might be your solution. It is more, but they are continuing to offer the old one as well. Mm-hmm. And that's what I like about it. I'm like, I hate it when you take a product that you have that works perfectly well for most people, replace it with a product that does a lot more than most people need it to do, charge more, and then delete the other product so people don't have an option. They're offering both for now.
That's right.
So this is a little bit different form factor. It has the other one has like a 3.5 millimeter jack in each one that has a Y cable that splits out from it that they include with it, but these have actual RCA inputs on both sides. So
I like this form factor better. I'm a fan of the new tri-band form factor.
I am as well, but like again, it goes from 6 hertz up to 20 kilohertz.
Yeah.
So it does the full audio band plus a little bit, and then everything you can hear plus some stuff you can't. So if you want to use this to send audio around your house, I mean, they were talking about. I listened to their announcement on their Facebook live thing, and they were talking about using it between rooms and having walls and ceilings in between. And they were saying it worked pretty well, but it's SVS. They have shipping free.
Yeah.
So try it if you're having a problem.
Speaking
Some comments from listeners. Jason, signal interference with a wireless subwoofer kit just came up last week that we just talked about it. So we followed up with Jason as soon as we learned about the new SVS tri-band option. However, Jason had already decided to try replacing his router, which was having issues with some of its radios anyway. So far, that seems to have nearly fixed the issue that he was having. He has still detected a grand total of 2 pops from his Outlaw OAW4 wireless kit, but it's way, way less than what was happening before, so chances are his old router was mostly to blame. So there you go.
Yes.
Right. Great. That's not something I would have guessed. So
it certainly makes sense. That could definitely be the source of interference, no question about that. So, yeah.
Right. Ilango wanted to share an update about his friend's parents who were looking for 3 stereo systems to install in their house. Ilango says our advice was super helpful, and they stayed very close to all of our recommendations. They have gone with a Yamaha MusicCast as the backbone for everything. The TSR 700 receiver from Costco will power a pair of Klipsch reference Premier on-wall speakers. For the open concept TV room, they actually went with the largest RP640D model, mostly for aesthetic reasons, as they better suit the size of the TV. And an SVS 3000 micro subwoofer will provide the bass. For the bedroom, the MusicCast 50 wireless speaker that we recommended keeps everything nice and simple and easy to manage. And finally, for the living room, where they just wanted a pair of speakers that could wirelessly share the sources from the TV room, Ilango shared some of our reasoning about bookshelf speakers versus towers, and that convinced them to go with a pair of SVS Ultra bookshelves. And that was the way they ended up going. So good. There we go. SVS Ultra bookshelves.
Some really nice setups there. I think I wholeheartedly believe they will be very pleased with all of that. That should work very nicely and sound very good.
Yeah, and the big room having those clips is a good idea.
Yeah.
Too. First up, Greg ditched his surround back speakers and moved them into his kitchen instead. He's pretty sure it was the right decision. I'm 100% sure it was the right decision. Greg's main comment is that NASA created faux movie posters that are free to download. He thinks several of them would make great printed acoustic panels. I am clicking right now, baby. Let's go. I think I've actually seen these before.
Yeah, they're very cool looking. I don't. To me,
I
like
have
having
not.
the text across all of them, I'm like, I kind of wish it was just the images because the images are really cool. They're like, some of them are based on real astrophotography, and then they've just like gone over them with artwork to sort of up the colors and give it more of an animated look. But yeah, I mean, if you're into this look of these things, they're very cool.
Bet you could crop these, get those
Probably,
words
sure.
out of there.
Oh yeah, well, I mean, a little Photoshop skill, you could remove the
Oh yeah, I know
the
about
text.
that.
Yeah,
Yeah, maybe maybe I'll order some more pins.
Yeah.
Timothy wanted to encourage people to listen to our advice about auditioning speakers first and try not to let your ego get in the way of what your ears are actually telling you. He had convinced himself that the largest Clips Reference 3 standard speaker with its quadruple woofers and compression-loaded, horn-loaded tweeter had to be what he wanted. Just look at the size and the price. He was emotionally invested, but he just didn't like it. He had to go back to the retailer and return it, but he ended up with a KEF R Series center instead, and he thinks it sounds fantastic. I'm not shocked. that center channel is probably very good,
Sure.
especially if you're sitting like 35 feet away from it. Something, you're in the compression horn loaded tweeter just screams, I need lots of volume with very little power. So yeah, you're unlikely to need all that.
Yeah, that is the Reference 3, by the way. That actually is the top of their line. Because, I mean,
Right.
Clips' naming convention is very weird because they've got Reference as, like, their entry level, and then Reference Premier is their, like, most popular, value-oriented, I guess you could call it, but, like, the one in the middle, and then Reference 3 is the actual flagship. So, yeah, they're right at the top is what he was looking at.
Andrew was inspired by the looks of Gix Alpha and impression and acoustic panels that have decorative diffusion plates on the front. Since his panels, not his parents, his panels are DIY. He found some fence lattice at Home Depot that are the perfect size. He wanted them mostly for looks, so he's very happy with the results. They seem to have helped with a touch of treble harshness in his room, but that could easily be wishful thinking. They certainly don't seem to be hurting the acoustics at all, though. So they look nicer and sound great. So basically, he took a panel and he built he bought a frame and painted it, which basically has like holes in it everywhere.
It actually came in black as it was, which is kind of nice. He didn't even have to paint it.
Yeah, and I like this.
Yeah.
I think this is fine. I mean, acoustically, it's not going to make a huge amount of difference for the bass, which is what, the lower frequencies is going to go straight through with all those holes. And you get a little bit of diffusion off of it. And
Sure.
I think it looks pretty good. That's a nice idea.
Yeah.
I like it.
It's pretty cool. And yeah, it was the perfect size. So like nothing to do except actually screw them into the frames of his panels. So that made it very easy. And he's like, yeah, it's the look I wanted, and saved a bunch of money and allowed him to do it DIY. So that's great.
I'm
Home
going to look
Depot.
for that next time because I've got two panels in here that are still the standard 2 foot by 4 foot size. So I'm gonna look for that next time I go. So I might do that too. Mike, all right, questions here. First, before we get to the questions, I want to let everybody know that I have left my door to my home theater open because it was like 80 degrees in here. My wife is out at a bunch of meetings, and my son is in the other room, but he's in his bedroom doing school. So if you hear in a very faint sound of that alert whenever you get spotted in Metal Gear Solid, that is my phone. And the other room, I think it's far enough away where you won't hear it, but it just went off a few minutes ago. So it triggers so many people. Like I have people freak out. I got an announcement on my phone, and like people will jump. I'm like, you played Metal Gear Solid, didn't you?
Yep.
He goes, man.
Your mic is pretty directional, so I haven't noticed it yet. We'll see what happens.
I don't think it'll be a problem, but I just want to let you know. And I don't know where the dog is, so she might come in here and bug me too. Mike, these are the questions here. Mike, last week Mike asked about amplifiers for his car audio system and for wireless outdoor purposes. He got some clarifications. Or he has some clarifications, so those might alter our suggestions. I don't remember what we said. The car audio system we looked up for his Subaru Forester might have been the factory upgrade option. He does not have the 650-watt Harman Kardon head unit and amplifier we mentioned. Instead, it's a Clarion 20 watts by 4 amplifier that he's got. So he's still looking to power the same Diamond Audio Hex speaker drivers that are rated for 100 watts and 120 watts, respectively. Everything is 4 ohms. So do those drivers need a new amplifier powering them? And what will happen if he powers them with the 20 watts by 4 unit that he has in there? I think it'll be fine.
I mean, you will not be able to get them to maximum output.
No.
If they are rated at 100 watts and 120 watts respectively to get them to maximum output, then yep, that 20 watt times 4 unit won't get them there. You will still...
I think it should be fine.
Oh, yeah. I mean, you will still absolutely get sound. You will still get pretty darn loud sound because by all accounts, you should be getting... I don't know, north of about 96, 98 decibels out of that amplifier. But I don't know what type of protection, if any, the car audio amplifiers have attached to them. It is not out of the realm of possibility that if you really cranked up the volume, you could drive that amplifier into clipping. And it would be something like amplifier clipping that runs the risk of potentially damaging your speakers. So this is a matter of how loud do you like to play your car audio? Because if you keep it at fairly reasonable levels, like I say, about 96, 98 decibels or less, then the 20 watts will get you there. That's not an issue. It's not like it won't function. But if you really want to maximize what you can do, then you would want to get a higher wattage amplifier because 20 watts simply cannot get you to the maximum headroom that your new speakers allow. So that's the objective side of it. If you did get a new amplifier, it's certainly not the wrong thing to do by any means, because if you do have any concerns about potential amplifier clipping because you like to really crank your car audio system, then that would be a worthwhile purchase.
Okay. He cut out for like a whole big part of that. So I have no idea what he said. For the outdoor amplifier, it turns out he was hoping for something that can actually be exposed to elements outdoors. The amp itself doesn't have to be wireless, doesn't have to have wireless capabilities, input capabilities. He'd be fine plugging a wireless dongle like a Chromecast audio or something similar into it, but the Chromecast audio wouldn't be outdoor rated, so there's a problem right there. But with his desire not to run any speaker wire into the house from his pair of outdoor speakers, so hoping to have the amplifier outside at all times too. Any ideas? Again, if you're going to plug anything into this, it also has to be outdoor rated, or I guess you could put it in a Ziploc bag and hope.
Yeah.
But yeah, you gotta. Yeah, you're gonna have to unplug things, I think, and take them back in the house. I mean, I just don't see how else you do this.
Well, I found two potential solutions. Now, the first one, and honestly the one I think you should go with, is to just get one or two, because you can pair them together to act as a stereo pair, of Sonos's Move speakers. Because those, you would be bringing them back inside to recharge them. But their batteries last a long time. They're $400 each. So if you can get away with one, that's great. If you need stereo, then two of them would be $800. But honestly, I think that's probably the best solution because it means no wires outside. You can move them around as you please, and you can connect directly to them, Bluetooth. They have Bluetooth input capability. And of course, as long as you're within the wireless range of your Wi-Fi signal for your house, they can connect to your Sonos system too. So that is actually my number one suggestion to you. However, I did find that Phase Tech, of all companies, I haven't talked about them in ages, but they're still around. They're owned by somebody else now. Their website doesn't even go to them anymore. You have to find their parent company, but they still exist, Phase Tech. They have an amplifier called the OS440. It's $500, exactly like all the other amplifiers we talked about last week, so no difference in price, but it is actually designed to live outside. It is resistant to humidity and all that kind of stuff. However, they say if you are actually going to permanently mount it outside, you really need to put it into a protective box. And they link to the protective box. They don't manufacture it, but they link to the one that they recommend, their outdoor enclosure. And that is $210, the enclosure. So you're up to like almost the same price as getting two of those Sonos Move speakers just for the amplifier and enclosure, but this is the only one I could find that is genuinely rated to stay outside at all times. The Phase Tech amplifier itself comes with like a whole bunch of rubber gaskets and grommets to cover up all of the inputs and outputs. It uses Phoenix type speaker connectors that then have a rubber gasket that goes over the entire where the speaker wire plugs in and where the Phoenix connector goes. So, yeah, I mean, that's the solution I found. It is doable. It can live outside. You're going to have like a box. I don't know how discreet you wanted it to be. It's an enclosure that lives out there. But yeah, this is doable. Then you would use like outdoor rated, direct burial rated speaker wire that has the proper jacket and UV protection on it. But yeah, could be done. I think the Sonos Move is the way to go.
All right. Aaron's ears perked up when we started discussing HEOS, MusicCast, and particularly DTS Play-Fi. Aaron will be having a new house built, and he's in the planning stages for his whole house audio system. He's a big fan of SVS, so he was drawn by their Prime wireless products, which of course use DTS Play-Fi. A big selling point for him is SVS's customer support. They respond much more quickly and are much more helpful than pretty much any other manufacturer he's ever dealt with. So if he runs into any complications or problems, he likes the feeling of confidence that SVS would be there to help him out. He intends to have a central equipment closet where he can home run all of his wires. For any rooms using in-walls and in-ceilings, he could power those with Prime wireless sound base units. And for any rooms where the speakers can be on shelves or stands, he could use Prime wireless speakers. For anything SVS doesn't cover, Aaron thought it might be helpful that DTS Play-Fi is not exclusive to one company. There are other brands that also use Play-Fi, so that gives him more options potentially. Lastly, he noted that Philips has started integrating Play-Fi directly into some of their TV models, and was thinking that would be ideal for his patio TV in the backyard. If it's reliable, he wouldn't have to mess with as many outdoor wires. So what are our thoughts on this? Do we think DTS Play-Fi might be the right way to go in his case? I think it sounds perfectly reasonable. I don't see any reason why you wouldn't do this. If you want to go with, I mean, you can use other systems with SVS speakers. I mean, you don't need, but then you would have to buy a amp or something that did have that capabilities. But
actually, yeah, if you went mostly with SVS Prime wireless sound base and Prime wireless speakers, even if in the future you decided to switch to another system or you wanted to outfit everything with Google Home or She Who Shall Not Be Named from Amazon or whatever, they do have just regular inputs, so you could actually do that switch without replacing the speakers and amplifiers. So that's handy. Here is my take on it, because I certainly think it's obvious that he's looked into it. He knows what he's getting into, and if you're a fairly tech-literate person, I think you'll be really happy with it. My one somewhat critique of DTS Play-Fi is the app is good, not great. Every so often, there'll be some things using that DTS Play-Fi app where kind of like, why did it respond that way? Or why do I have to back out of this page and go to another page to do this thing? Like, it's not the most user-friendly app. I think the Sonos app and the MusicCast app are better, just from a usability standpoint. So it's not that the capabilities are different. You can do all the same things in the DTS Play-Fi app that you can do in the Sonos or the MusicCast app. It's just not always as intuitive or easy to get there. So to me, if this is a system you're using and your family is fine with learning, if there's a somewhat unintuitive button sequence you have to use for something you want to do, they're fine with learning that, then I'm totally on board with this, because the capabilities are there, and like you say, the product selection is there, and it's really nice, and SVS is there to help you out with customer support. If this is more a matter of, you've got people who are going to be coming into the house or living in the house who are very non-techie, and if there's something unintuitive or the least bit frustrating to use in the app, I'm like, you might run into that sometimes. Just be prepared for that. It's always possible that the DTS Play-Fi app will get updated and get better, but as it stands right now, I think it's good, but not the very best in terms of ease of use. That's all I wanted to kind of get out there.
I mean, you can play with the app right now.
For sure.
And you could just go out there and download it and look at it and see how it works. I never really had many problems with it.
Right.
No one else, I did all the setup, so it was just a matter of, and I do most of the control anyway, so maybe it's easier for me. Bob has a 2017 NVidia Shield connected to a Denon X4300H. She did not make any changes to any settings, but for some reason the volume level coming out of the Shield has dropped by 25%. All apps in the Shield have been affected, but if he uses a music streaming app that is built into the Denon, that sounds fine. No change in volume from that. So it seems to be isolated to just the Shield. He would prefer to avoid doing a full factory reset of both his receiver and shield since it's a hassle to redo all of the settings. So is there anything we can think of that might have caused this? What's the fix? Don't know.
And I can spoil this right away and happily report that what I'm about to mention did seem to fix it, and Bob was very happy that it was this simple. And thankfully, this is a glitch that I ran into once before on my Shield, which was, okay, so you go into the settings, and you go into the display and sound section, and within there's one called volume control. So the first thing I said to do is make sure that you've got the HDMI volume control set to fixed volume. Now that usually isn't an issue, but you do have the ability to turn the volume of what's coming out of the Shield itself up and down. So you definitely want to set that to fixed volume output just so that you're controlling the volume via your AV receiver, not the Shield itself. But it wasn't that. It was this second thing, which is lower down on the page. You have to scroll down in that volume control setting. There is one that says lower the volume when listening. And this is for voice commands. You press the microphone button on the remote, and it lowers the volume so that it can hear you better while you're giving your voice command. Well, I had a glitch once where I barely ever use the voice commands, but I have definitely hit the microphone button by accident more than once.
Right.
And I got it once where it did that thing, as you expected. I pressed the microphone button by accident, I think, and it lowered the volume, and then it got stuck there. The volume didn't go back up after it stopped listening. It just got stuck at the lowered volume.
That happens on my phone via Bluetooth sometimes too in my car, and I have to like skip the next song to get it to go back to normal or something. So I've run into that same thing over Bluetooth in my car.
Right.
So
well, in my case, since I rarely use the voice commands anyway, and what Bob tried and it worked, thankfully, was I simply turned that off. I turned off lower the volume when listening. It leaves the volume where it is at all times now. And he's like, I didn't even have to reboot the Shield. It just worked immediately after turning that setting off. So that is happy, but that's a good note if it happens to anybody else. I haven't heard any other podcasts or seen anybody else write about it, so we can reference this if it happens to you. It might apply to more than the Shield too. Like Tom said, it happens on your phone, right? So sometimes that's the thing. It's worth noting.
There you go. Max wrote us a while back asking for some suggestions for his attic room setup. We said adding a door was a top priority. Sounds like us. Along with adding some acoustic treatments on the angled part of his ceiling. He did those things and also stuffed a whole bunch of insulation behind his couch where the angled roofline comes down nearly to the floor. Happily, all those changes have greatly improved his bass and the center channel clarity, so he really appreciates our advice. Okay.
Yeah.
Good. Yay for us. He's back with a different question now. He uses a Denon S730H receiver for the moment and mostly his PS4 as a source. He intends to get a PS5 fairly soon. He's using a projector, so all the fancy HDMI 2.1 features aren't really a priority, but he does intend to upgrade his receiver at some point. Won't be a while, though. He added some Aura Pro bass shakers to his couch along with a Crown XLS amp to power them. He wishes he had seen Tom's article or my article about the complications of adding tactile transducers beforehand, but now that he's into it, and looking for some fixes and improvements. He has started with the Crown amp getting its signal from the second subwoofer output of his Denon, which is just an internal Y splitter. When he has the master volume turned up high for movies, that works just fine. He experimented with Odyssey EQ on and off, and there wasn't a huge difference and no problems with the bass shaker, so that is fine. But most of the time when his family is just watching TV, the master volume is lower. He can crank the gain on the Crown amp as high as it goes, but it's still not enough, and the bass shakers barely do anything at this lower volume level. Lastly, at night, he uses wireless headphones that get their signal directly from the PS4's optical output. The PS4 will actually send audio out of both its optical port and its HDMI port at the same time, so he can still send the signal to the Denon. But since he doesn't want his speakers playing late at night, just as headphones, he uses an adapter to plug the Crown amp into the Denon's headphone jack, and then uses the Crown's low-pass filter so that it's only amplifying the bass and sending that to the bass shakers. It doesn't seem to feel as accurate as when he uses a subwoofer output from the Denon, but it gets the job done. Right now, he can't use the Zone 2 solution. His Denon S730H does not have a Zone 2 pre-outs, just the option to power Zone 2 with the surround back binding post, and it won't play signals of any type out of Zone 2 anyways, only stereo analog anyways.
Yeah, digital signals. Yeah. So
digital
you can't do HDMI in or optical in. It won't send that out of Zone 2.
Right. All right, so he wants it to work not only when it's loud, but when it's soft, and also with his headphones.
Yeah.
Out of the headphone jack the same way. So, you're asking a lot here, Hoss. I'm going to be honest with you. As mentioned, he does intend to get a new receiver at some point. If he gets a newer model that can continue playing surround sound for the main zone while creating a 2-channel down mix for the Zone 2 pre-outs, it seems like that would work okay. At night with his headphones, he could turn on Zone 2 only and use that exclusively for the bass shakers, which would work.
Yeah.
For the time being, is there a stopgap solution that is cheap that will work better than what he's doing now? One concern is that the PS5 doesn't have an optical output, so he's trying to figure out how he can continue using the wireless headphones he has along with the bass shakers. He is not against manually plugging things in and out. He is already doing so with the headphone output solution at night, so maybe just an HDMI audio extractor and the other ideas. That would be my go-to, is an HDMI switch that would pass through the PS5 to the receiver and then split out the audio if in 2-channel form. But I don't know that such a device exists. As I just said it out loud, I'm like, I'm pretty sure that's not something that you can do easily. It's like you would need a splitter, and then you would split to the one side, and the one side you would again extract the audio just to go to the bass shakers, right, to the crown amp. So you'd actually need 2 splitters.
Yeah, which starts getting a bit nuts to spend that all now and then.
Well, at that point, it would be cheaper just to buy a new receiver.
Well, that's just it. Like, I'm looking at, because he's got a 5.1 or 5.2.2 setup. And he isn't really looking to expand that all, because, I mean, in his setup, it doesn't really make any sense to go to 4 overheads, and he isn't going to go to 7 channels with his seat right against the back wall and 0 space behind his seat anyway. So he's pretty much maxed out on speakers, but he does want to use all 7. Gosh, I mean, like, I'm so tempted to say, like, kind of grin and bear it for the time being, and then upgrade the receiver. Because once you upgrade the receiver, because like the current models that Denon has out right now, well, the ones that end in a 700, and I would assume this will carry forward to whatever comes out this year and ends in an 800, they do have that feature now where you can continue playing surround sound, you can continue playing immersive audio, Atmos audio in the main zone, and then it will automatically create a 2-channel down mix for Zone 2. And that is actually the superior way to handle bass shakers, because the 2-channel down mix that's being created does not have EQ applied to it. That's
what you want.
Exactly.
That'll make it so that, in theory, that should solve all of your problems.
Yeah, because the crown amp already has the low-pass filter, so that's fine. You can send the full-range signal that the Zone 2 pre-outs would be sending, and then just apply the low-pass filter that the crown has on it. There's no EQ being applied. It gives you independent volume control for the bass shakers, because you can set the gain on the crown amp itself, and you can adjust the volume of Zone 2, the pre-outs of Zone 2, independent of the main zone. Then exactly what you described for the head. Now, okay, so for the headphone setup, you still would, in the case of the PS5, only have the HDMI output. So that, assuming that's plugged into your AV receiver, because in your case, we don't even care if HDMI 2.1 is working, you only need HDMI 2.0 to your projector anyway, so you would have the HDMI output of your PS5 going into your new receiver. You could turn on only Zone 2 so that it isn't playing that sound out of the speakers. But, like, honestly, to me, the solution there for getting your wireless headphones to continue working with your PlayStation 5 is that you can plug headphones right into the controller. The controller has a headphone jack, and that would be your wireless signal, right? Like, I assume you're still going to be holding the controller in your hand. So instead of worrying about using a separate wireless headphone setup, I would just plug headphones into the PS5's controller, and that makes them wireless. Well, other than the wire running from your headphones to the controller, but that's not so bad. I assume the problem is getting the wire going.
There might be a delay there, though, between what's happening on the controller, the audio that's coming out of the controller versus the
image?
The Zone 2.
Oh, the Zone 2.
Yeah, you would have a bass delay.
The bass shaking is not quite synchronized with the sound.
Not sync with the sound that you're hearing in your headphones.
That's possible.
Would be my guess.
That's not impossible. This is a tricky one. I mean, the thing is, with the PS5, you could always connect just the PS5 to an audio extractor and just have optical audio for that, because the PS5 doesn't output Atmos anyway. So
Right.
you're not really worried about that.
I think I think that Rob's solution is the correct one.
Right.
Except for plugging into the headphone and plugging into the controller.
Okay.
I know that you want to have wireless headphones,
Yeah.
but if you want everything to sync up, and so you get the new receiver,
Okay.
everything should sync up just fine.
Yeah.
In all the situations except for the wireless headphones, which is gonna, even if you're using a wireless headphone that's plugged directly into the receiver and everything else, I think there could be delay issues there, because Zone 2 is not going to be.
You know, the bass,
synced up.
the bass that you have, I'm talking about the not BASS, BASE, the bass that you have for your wireless headphones, because he's plugging an optical port into something that's then transmitting the sound wirelessly to his headphones, right? Now, he described using that with an optical port. I'm like, does the bass that you use that sends that wireless signal to your headphones have an analog input? Because if it does, you could actually split the Zone 2 pre-out. That would be a way to do it.
That would be the way to
then
fix
you're
that.
definitely going to be synced up between the signal that goes to your bass shakers and the signal that goes to your wireless headphones. And the signal going to your wireless headphones is going to be stereo at the most anyway. So that could be the solution. And I mean, just an RCA Y splitter is super easy. So that might be.
I mean, how dedicated are you to having a wireless headphone setup? I mean, a long wire.
Right.
To your receiver fixes this whole problem.
That's true, yeah, because then you just plug it into the headphone jack, and the Zone 2 still works.
Yeah, I mean, and then you don't even have to touch anything. You just have to plug in the headphones and go sit down. I mean, I know you don't necessarily want the wires, but
yeah,
that
or
would
actually, he could still. Again, if the bass that you have for your headphones accepts analog, he could plug that into the headphone jack of the AV receiver. That's dead simple.
Yeah.
Yeah, because you could do headphones.
I'm still worried about a little bit of a delay.
You're still worried
though.
about the latency. Okay, but I mean,
Yeah.
Honestly, the solution we like best is getting the new AV receiver. I mean, we're the ones who are always trying to save people money and come up with the cheapest way of doing it. But like, I don't see the point in spending $100 or $200 on like splitters and adapters right now when you could like. You're kind of have to grit your teeth and bear what you're doing right now for the time being, because I don't really see
and if you're only thinking about getting a PS5 anyways, right?
Yeah.
You could buy a Denon right now and just
with that money, with the money for the PS5, you could definitely get a new Denon receiver, a 7-channel for sure.
You know, and then it has the one HDMI 2.1 input that you're looking for, and you know, if you're not really thinking you're going to upgrade anything else anytime soon. You know, you could do that.
Yeah, like
and
just
it would be
make sure it's a model that has the Zone 2 pre-outs. So like the S, what is it, 970, I think, or the X 2700. Like either of those, as long as it has the Zone 2 pre-outs and it does the thing where it'll keep playing in surround sound and then also automatically down mix to 2-channel for Zone 2. So yeah, that's my honest answer. I don't feel comfortable telling you to spend $100 or $200 on a series of splitters and adapters and audio extractors right now. I don't think it's worth it.
I honestly believe that it's $100 to $200 is optimistic
on the low side. And then
I think you're going to end up spending a lot more than that to get this to work the way you want it to work. You're like, for $100 more, you could have bought a new receiver.
And the other thing I'd like you to consider is in the scenario where you have the volume turned down when you're just watching TV casually, do you have dynamic EQ activated?
Yeah.
Because it sounds like now maybe the reason he doesn't have dynamic EQ activated is because if he does, the subwoofers get way louder than they want them to be.
The bass shakers are going to be shaking probably a lot more than they should.
Could be.
At those volumes. Yeah.
But I'm just thinking that would at least get the signal level up so that your bass shakers are going the way you want. Then you could manually turn down the subwoofers would be the way to offset that. But dynamic EQ might be able to get you where you want to be with the master volume turned down without really having to do much else. So if I had a better solution that I felt comfortable recommending, I would do so. But honestly, like since you have it in mind that you were going to upgrade your receiver at some point anyway, and doing so honestly solves like all your problems, I would rather you save whatever money you have on hand right now, and that way you get that new receiver that much sooner.
Right. Okay.
Not always a perfect fit, but
no. Yeah. Bass shakers, I swear, are more trouble than they're worth. To be
There
honest
is
with
that
you.
to consider.
That's what I think.
He
I
likes
think
them
the
now,
more
though. He's in
prevalent-
love with them, so that's
Sorry
how we're
about that
going.
little sound. I was adjusting my guard on my mic. JR used our recommended Apple TV 4K settings with his 77-inch CX OLED. That sure does result in a lot of momentary black screens and the image flickering when you switch from content to the menu. So is that honestly the way we think it ought to be? It's really not a welcome experience. It sure seems nicer just leaving the Apple TV 4K and Dolby Vision output at all times, which seems to be what it wants to do anyways, and not messing with the frame rate switching. Can we talk through the pluses and minuses? Well, so the plus is that you don't have to deal with the black screens ever. Okay?
Which, I mean,
Because
honestly, when the Apple TV 4K first came out, that is exactly the way Apple had it. Apple agreed with you, JR, and said, we don't want there to be blanking on the displays. We don't want that. Like, you know how sometimes it kind of gets the signal for like a second and then it goes out again and then it comes back and you get that weird, like the image came in and out. Once in a while, you'll even get where it like momentarily shows up with the almost like inverted colors or like all that. And you're like, wow, wigged out for a second and then it fixes itself after a moment. But I get that. And Apple didn't want that. At first, they did it this way where if you had HDR or Dolby Vision, it was stuck there at all times, and they didn't do frame rate switching at first. Then enough of us home theater enthusiast type people, and actually I have to give a lot of credit to the guys over at The Verge because they're one of the few like well-known tech journalism sites that actually cares about home theater stuff and directly calls companies out on it, and they actually kind of listen to them. But yeah, they were like, hey, come on, we don't want stuff that's SDR to be showing up in HDR, and so they added the match frame rate and the match dynamic range settings. Yeah, I mean, I'm a fan of it because I'm willing to put up with the screen wigging out for a second to know that I don't have any judder. Because, I mean, that's the thing. That the 24 hertz is so that you don't have judder, so that in those slow panning shots in movies, it looks smooth instead of the slightly jerky movement that you get from 3-2 pull down. That's the reason for changing the frame rates. And then if I'm going to be fine with the screen blanking out and wigging out for a second for the frame rate change, then I don't care if it does that for HDR versus SDR as well. It's gonna probably do it anyway because most of the time the frame rate changes. So if I'm gonna do one, I'm gonna do both. But if you really hate that, then kind of the only solution is to leave it at one frame rate and HDR all the time.
Right. And honestly, this is not a new phenomenon. We've been having this since pretty much, I mean, I from the beginning.
Well,
once you started
certainly
switching,
as soon as we had, even once we got enhanced definition, right? 480p.
Yeah, when we didn't quite, yes. And then we would get the blank screen as it switched inputs, or even when you're changing TV channels, it would happen. Yeah. And
HD TV versus SD TV when we still had a lot of standard def channels, and you had the switch between HD and SD.
And I agree with you. I mean, I think it's annoying, but they just haven't come up with a way of making that. Now they had like that Insta preview and all these other like little solutions that were supposed to work, but those only work between inputs.
Right.
They don't work between things on the same HDMI.
Yeah,
input.
when the source itself is changing.
Yeah. So what it would do is it would actually make it would actually like look at anything that was playing or anything that was coming in your HDMI inputs and say, okay, so let's make sure if we switch inputs that we know what we're going to be sending the TV so that we can send it there immediately. And the TV is already kind of cued into it somehow. I don't know how they did it. And that was supposed to reduce or remove that little black screen. But it doesn't work anymore, in particular, because now all of our devices have apps, and the apps are all different. And, like me, everything comes out of my Xbox One pretty much. I almost never use anything else. Sometimes use the Roku, sometimes use the Blu-ray player. But, the content that's on Netflix, one will be in HD and the next one will be in SD, and, it's you just never know. So
like, to me, I gotta say, JR, I'm like the polar opposite, because I'm actually kind of happy when I see the little black screen, because then I know it's making the change.
It's doing the thing it's supposed to be doing.
And
yes.
I like that. And
that's the geek response.
I'm
the geek
neurotic
response
enough.
Is, it doesn't do the black screen. How do you know it's working?
That's right. I'm neurotic enough. I'll still press the info button on my AV receiver and TV just to double check that it really is doing the correct frame rate. So, that's me. I kind of like having that blank out. I will say, like, on the C10 OLED, it's one of the fastest to do that shift. But I'm not saying you absolutely notice that there's a black screen and you absolutely notice that the image wigs out sometimes, but it's quick. When we talked last week or the week before where it was one of the JVC projectors, I'm like, yeah, that I could really see, because when it's going to be like a 15-second black screen, then that I could definitely get on board with. But like, to me, the CX does it fast enough. But in no way do I blame you for not liking that experience. I kind of end up with the same recommendation that I gave to the JVC projector owner, which is that if this really bugs you and you really care about 24 frames per second as the default output, then the NVidia Shield is the best way to go. The best solution would be to exchange your Apple TV 4K for an NVIDIA Shield, because that is the one device that lets you lock it to 24 hertz. Right. So in that instance, when you're navigating the menus, it looks a little bit like choppy because it's only 24 hertz. It doesn't animate super smoothly, but it's still totally functional. You can still get where you want to get. It's just the animation of moving around the menu doesn't look as smooth, and who really cares? And then you can leave it HDR all the time, Dolby Vision all the time, and 24 hertz all the time, and not have judder, but also not change frame rates.
There you go. Patrick says, we've recently discussed a couple of questions about using an external streaming device versus the apps built into your TV. We talked about frame rates and certain audio limitations, but what about being forced to use HDMI ARC and typically being forced to turn on HDMI CEC? Mm-hmm. Whenever Patrick has used the apps built into his TV, that has been the case for him. The audio wouldn't work unless he had HDMI CEC turned on, and he's had some glitches with HDMI ARC. So audio return channel is ARC. CEC is
consumer electronics control.
Yeah. For him, those seem like the top reasons to go with an external streaming device instead. What do we think? I agree. That's why we do it. But not everybody does. And if I cannot use CEC in any way, shape, or form, that because I will. But right. What they had to start doing, and not every device does this, is they allow you to turn on just the ARC part of CEC, right, and it doesn't do the rest of it. Because the rest of it's where the problem lies. When it starts trying to detect, like you turn on your Blu-ray player and it switches to your Blu-ray, then it switches back to your Apple TV 4K. Why? I don't know. CEC, some sort of priority thing. I don't know. It just does it. The solution is to turn off CEC. Well, then the automatically turning on thing doesn't work anymore. I'm like, yeah, I know. It wasn't working to begin with. I didn't break it any more than it was already broken. It's still broken. So, yeah, I agree. Mm-hmm. But if you really want, and I hate saying this because I just made fun of it earlier in the podcast, but if you really want HDMI CEC to work, buy everything from the same manufacturer. That's how you get it to work.
Even
right?
then, then it isn't bulletproof.
That's your best shot, though. You buy a Sony TV and a Sony Blu-ray player and a Sony PS5, and you connect them all up, and then HDMI CEC, which they call Bravia Sync, I think.
Yes, they do, yeah.
Works as best as it's probably ever going to.
Actually, is Sony like the only option? Shot. Because they're one of the few that actually does make AV receivers, too.
Right, and you could get a receiver as well, right?
So AV receiver, because Denon doesn't make
like
TVs.
You could do a Samsung and then a Samsung like soundbar,
sure, yeah,
thing, and a Samsung Blu-ray player or a whatever, and you can connect all those things up. Now you can't have a video game console, but
you can't have an Ultra HD Bluray player either.
Nope,
because they don't make them anymore.
I didn't say
Sony
Ultra.
Does.
I said Blu-ray.
I think Sony might be the only one that makes all the things.
Right.
But yeah, no, I mean, that is a good point. We didn't mention it. It is a factor to consider. I mean, the thing is, I prefer using an external box anyway, so I didn't need further convincing. But I understand where Patrick's coming from, where he's like, yeah, the things you talked about as the reasons you might opt for an external box, they're not even like the most basic of reasons, which is that it's a kind of a pain to have HDMI CEC or turned on, and ARC isn't always 100% reliable. The other thing I'll add on to that, Patrick, is that, again, I mentioned I'm the person who loves to press the info button and make sure that exactly what I want is coming out. Doesn't work as well with HDMI ARC because you obviously don't get to see any of the video stuff through your AV receiver because the AV receiver isn't getting any video stuff at that point.
Right.
The video is 100% being handled by the TV and then only the audio. And then usually the info button for the audio return channel doesn't, on a lot of AV receivers, it doesn't show you all the same information as when it's an external source plugged into a regular HDMI input. So that's another little thing for the propeller heads of us who love to press the info button and see what's going on. So yeah, no disagreement, Patrick. I mean, I come back to the thing of if you want to have the most up-to-date, then having an external box is the way to go anyway, because none of these TV manufacturers give you continual updates for more than maybe 1 year on their television sets. So, yeah, I'm a fan of the external box, regardless.
So he says he's using a TCL 6 Series TV by default. Whenever you turn the TV on, it goes to the Roku home screen. He's using a Harmony remote, so we'd like to be able to use the Harmony activities as intended and push a single button and have the TV go to the correct input. Well, if you contact Logitech, they'll just probably update that for you. They said they're going to give you full customer support.
Yeah. Actually, please do contact them. Contact them every day so that they're never allowed to stop.
It's doable, he says, but it requires some pretty long delays so the TV has the time to turn on, get to the Roku home screen, and carry out the navigation to get to the correct input. We all know Harmony macros can miss a command from time to time, so he wants to speed up the whole process, and make it more reliable. So is there a way to avoid that Roku home screen when the TV first turns on? Not that I'm aware of, but maybe Rob knows.
I am, thankfully, since I bought that TCL TV for my nephew and I spent a little time setting it up, in the back of my mind, because I had gone through all the menu settings, of course, just to see what's all there. In the back of my mind, I was like, I do recall a thing that said last active input or home screen, or gave you the option of selecting HDMI 1, 2, 3, or 4. And I'm like, I know I saw that somewhere. That's all I had in the back of my head, and I shot off an email to Patrick right away with that. And I was like, if you got the time, please dig through, because I don't have a TCL TV to dig through it on my own, and I don't know if anybody's going to cover that in a video or in a tutorial anywhere. So thankfully he did, and he's like, yup, it does exist, and he provided back in feedback the way to get to it. So this is something we can share, which is that, yes, you go to the TV's settings. So you have to go to that Roku home menu first and then go into the settings there. Then it's under the power section, because of course it would be. Where else would it be? Yeah, it wouldn't be in the inputs. It wouldn't be in the video settings. It'd be in the power settings. But there it is. Under power, there is a subsection called Power On, and within that, you can select a specific input or the last active input or the Roku home screen, which is the default. So he was happy to find that. Now he can be like, okay, just start at this one input, his most used input. Always start there, and that gives him an easy starting point for his Harmony activities, because it knows that it's starting from there, and then it's easy to get wherever he wants from there.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay.
It worked.
Whatever. I'm sure. Michael says he found us on YouTube.
Yes.
What? Really?
I know. One of the hundreds.
Please like our videos, because I don't think anybody else does.
I don't even think we actually have hundreds of viewers. I think it's literally just like the same person coming back maybe like 8 times to actually see the whole thing, because our videos are so ridiculously long.
So Michael says he found us on YouTube and has been binge watching us. He calls himself a budding AV enthusiast and a noob. But he already managed to purchase himself a Denon X3700H receiver and a set of 3 ELAC debut 2.0 speakers, the B6.2 bookshelves, and the C6.2 center. He set those up in his living room right away, along with the PS5.
Yeah, so I don't consider him like a noob at all, because you don't arrive at a Denon X3700H by accident. That clearly some research was done.
So his TV is over his fireplace. He's got a large stand for his center channel, and his 2 bookshelves are flanking the other side. This doesn't look like this is a fireplace that's used very often.
Indeed.
Based on the fact that I can't see any burn marks on the hardwood floor in front of it. That's usually the case. So he's enjoying them in the living room, but they have a spare bedroom. Think of the dimensions as being 13 by 12.5 rectangle, but minus a 2.5 by 7 foot for a closet. The ceiling is 7.5 feet. There are a couple of windows, the closet, and a door. So the room can be enclosed. The bed and the other furniture that are in there now can all be removed. The only thing that has to stay is a small computer desk. The plan is to put a 75-inch TV and a single couch about 6 to 7 feet away. That should leave just enough room to keep the computer desk on the back wall behind the couch. Okay. So his questions are, how big was this room again? 13 by 12. So it's 13 by 13, basically.
Yeah, but minus the closet space.
So the closet space actually juts out into the room. For those of you that are
yeah.
confused about it like I am.
Right.
And then one wall, the ceiling angles down.
Yeah.
So this is exterior or whatever. It looks like a bonus room maybe. What should be his plan for speakers? He'd like to make full use of his Denon X3700H and end up with the 5.2.4 configuration. He likes the idea of perfectly matching speakers all around. So he's strongly considering a complete SVS Prime speaker package, including 4 Prime elevation speakers. But he already owns the 3 ELAC Debut 2.0 speakers. Would it be wiser to move those into a spare room and then expand to 5.2.4 with more ELAC speakers? He's still going to want to have some speakers in the living room, but he'd be fine stepping down to a 2-channel setup in there. He's got about $3,000 on hand right now, and if that doesn't cover everything all at once, he's fine with completing the full setup later as funds become available. What do we advise? So his other room, it's very hard to know, but it looks like he's not sitting very far away from these ELAC speakers.
In the living room?
Yeah, in the living room. It's very hard to tell, but in here, so, man. So this is like 6 of one, half dozen of the other. I would be okay. I would be okay with you doing any of the things that you have mentioned. Okay,
yeah,
5.2.4 I think is good. I don't necessarily see any reason why you have to go SVS all the way around or ELAC all the way around. You can definitely mix and match between those two. I think they're
considering
neutral enough.
The total number of speakers he's going to end up buying regardless, though. Yeah, I mean, it wouldn't hurt to just have the same brand all around. The ELAC Debut 2.0 and the SVS Prime series are not wildly different in price.
No, they're not.
So, yeah, I don't see a bad move here either way, to be completely honest.
So I guess the thing is if he moves the receiver upstairs, then and decides to go SVS all the way around upstairs, which is fine, then he's got an ELAC center channel speaker that he really doesn't need. I guess the only downside of going that direction.
Which, I mean, if you really want to get rid of it, there are people completely willing to buy that off of you. You might not get all your money back, but that is a speaker you can sell because the ELAC speakers are pretty popular speakers.
Yeah, I mean, this is what I would do. I would take and buy the bookshelf speakers that I want from SVS.
Okay.
And then I'd put them downstairs with the other ones and do some A-Bing, and I would take them into this bedroom and I would do some A-Bing.
Yeah.
And just remember, I believe that before you do any of that, you should get your couch and you should put your room treatments up. Okay? Because in that theater, things can change drastically based on how your room is treated. So getting an empty reverberant room and putting your speakers in there and then A-Bing them to decide which one you like, you're going to find out which one you like in a room that sounds like garbage. You're not going to find out which one you like when your room is well treated. So I know we've only got $3,000 here, but that's the way that I would kind of go. So if you do it downstairs first, and you have at least an idea of how it sounds in a room that you're at least is set up as it's going to be, and if you say, "Hey, these ELAC and they sound about the same," well, then you do SVS upstairs and go that way. But if you say the SVSs sound way better down here than the ELACs do, well, then take the ELACs upstairs and finish out the room with ELACs, except for SVS subs.
I certainly like the idea of just bringing in one pair of Prime bookshelf speakers or even the Prime satellites, because I mean, size-wise, that would totally work fine for your room, and having a head-to-head comparison. Because I mean, first of all, if you hear them and you're like, oh, you know what, I actually prefer my ELACs regardless, so then okay, free shipping both ways, and and really easy with a pair of bookshelf speakers. And if you do end up wanting to, you go, hey, you know what? I like the SVS is better. I want to have 9 of those up in my theater. If you were worried about, oh, I'll miss out on the package pricing, don't worry. Just call SVS. They'll be like, oh, you want to get 7 more speakers? Yeah, of course you get the full package price. They are not going to hassle you over that, having tried one pair first and not buying all 9.2 instantly. No problem there as far as SVS goes. So, yeah, I mean, I don't feel super strongly that you must go either ELAC or you must go all SVS in your theater. I have good things to say about both of them, whichever way you went. So yeah, I'm all for bring in a pair, do an audition, do a head-to-head. I really like that. As far as room treatments for your room goes, because obviously price is, it's not like he doesn't have a healthy budget, but price is a consideration. He doesn't have a limitless budget in here. If you want to go full DIY, of course, that's probably the cheapest way, but I definitely want people to consider the DIY kits that Acoustimac sells, because they are really affordable. They're like really affordable. And as long as you've got a staple gun so that you can put the fabric on.
And do yourself a favor when you do this. Take a towel and put, if you're not working in if you're working in your like I do, I always work like on my garage floor or whatever. Put a sheet or something down, because what you're gonna say to yourself is, I don't want to get these things. I'm gonna cover them. I live in Florida. I don't want to work in my garage. It's hot. Okay. So I take them inside, but then I'm like, oh, I don't want to put them on my floor because I don't want to get them dirty. So I put them on the carpet. Well, the carpet's got a pad underneath it. And when you're trying to staple these things, it like bounces.
Right.
The staples don't go in right. So take a sheet or a towel that's clean, put it on the ground and on a tile floor, and so you have a hard surface to work on to get these staples. And believe me, you will thank me later for telling you to do that.
Yeah, people.
But the DIY solution is a really easy way to go.
Sure.
It's a lot easier than you think it is. I mean, like I said, I've DIY'd a whole bunch of things, and I just do it the least. Like, I don't measure anything. I just get the panel, I put a piece of wood next to it, and I put another piece of wood next to it, and I cut them. I draw a line, I cut them, and if it overhangs a little bit, I'm like, whatever. It's going to be covered in fabric. You're never going to notice it. So they really can be done without. You need like a saw. Of some sort, not recip, but a table saw would be perfect. But if you don't have that, then even a circular saw is good enough. Just zip, straight through that line, and then you kind of eyeball it and put in some screws, and Bob's your uncle. So these can really be DIY'd very easily for very, very cheap.
I do want to say those Acoustimac kits, they're hilarious, because sometimes people get them and they're like, yeah, I was assuming I would have to assemble the frame. The frame comes like assembled with the insulation in it, because that's the most efficient way to ship it. So really all you're doing is putting on the fabric and then mounting it. I'm
gonna look at these things.
Yeah,
maybe I'll just.
And then the price is really, really good. So if any of the assembly, as long as you're fine with putting on the fabric with a staple gun, and they give you
$50 for 4 of them that's like nothing.
For the frames, just the frames, yeah.
No, this has the whole thing.
Is that the whole thing? Insulation and everything?
Yeah, this says 4. No, this is okay. So the full size 48 by 24 by 4 DIY bass trap kit.
There you go.
$55. It has.
That's the 4 inches thick. That's not 4 of them.
Oh, 4 inches thick.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. So for each, $50 for each.
Yeah.
Okay.
But that's that's
cheap.
It's very affordable and saves you some hassle. So, yeah, I'm a big fan of those. That's all I'm trying to say. I'm a big fan of those, and it doesn't have. My point is, even if you didn't want to do full DIY, it doesn't have to go crazy expensive to treat your room.
Definitely save some money going DIY over those things.
Oh, sure.
But these are going to be a lot nicer, I'm sure. So. Yeah.
Something to consider. And yeah, I mean, you've got space on your front wall, your back wall, your side walls.
Yes.
You almost can't overdo it in this room because it's a hardwood floor.
Yeah.
And it's a small room. So you almost can't overdo it. So if you're worried that you're somehow going to get too many panels, I would not worry about that. Pretty much cover all the wall surfaces that you can, and you'll be in good shape as far as acoustic treatments goes.
Since he says he's new to all of this and going by what he finds online, he's wondering if dual SVS SB3000 subs are what he should aim for, and his 13 by 13 by 7.5 foot room.
In fact, even smaller than that, because the closet is taking up some of it.
So he wants really hard bass impact, and he's read that the SB3000 subs can deliver it. What do we think? We think we're about to save you a buttload of money, is what we think.
I mean, I don't disagree that the SB3000s could deliver it. That is most certainly
so
true.
could the PB4000s. So we're not going to suggest that either. Okay, you really want to deliver some subs? Let's go talk about Power Sound Audio and their dual 15-inch stacked refrigerator-sized subwoofers. SB2000 Pros in here would crush.
Yes. SB1000 Pros would get like that's.
I'm only saying the 2000 Pros because
you're worried that the smallest ones, he's just going to be too scared that it's not going to get it jumped up.
I think he's going to look at that and go, but what about when I have it?
I mean, PB1000 Pros would be ridiculous.
But I think he needs the space.
Yeah,
I don't think the PBs are the way to go.
I like the idea of going small. SB. Yeah, I like the idea of going just for the pure box size. Yeah, SB2000. Okay, if you were willing to do SB3000s, then you are definitely willing price wise to do 2000 Pros, and that. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I'm on board with that.
But we will both tell you from our heart of hearts, you will not notice a difference if side by side if you put SB 1000s versus the SB 2000s in this room. You will not notice a difference. It will crush just as hard. Your couch will shake just as hard. I don't think you'll do it.
Right.
Because talking somebody down from a 3000 to a 1000 is not something that happens on the regular.
Yeah.
But I guarantee you, if I put you in a room that was blind and you listen to some bass and I put you in a different room that's exactly the same dimensions but had that smaller subs in it, you would not be able to tell me which one was the smaller sub. You would not be able to tell me. Now, if emotionally you cannot connect with that, I understand.
I get
but
it.
just know you are overbuying subs if you buy 2000
I mean,
Pros.
we all but forbid you to go up to the 3000s because that is
beyond
overkill for your
waste of money.
Yeah.
That is when you have you tell me you have a $20,000 budget, and I'm fine. 3000.
I mean,
Pros,
what I will say is, if acoustic treatments weren't even in mind until we just talked about them for a while back there, and that has to fit into your budget. And going with dual SB 1000 Pros lets you do that, and 2000 Pros don't, then you got to go 1000 Pros because they are sufficient for your room, and having the room treatments is more important.
I have to. What's the difference in price? I can't remember.
Well, it's $500 for the 1000 Pros and $800 for the 2000 Pros each.
Jeez, I mean, that's $600.
That gets you some panels when the panels are only $50 or $55 a piece.
I know. Okay. Jason, first up an update on Jason's DIY printed panels. He went with the performance knit fabric from My Fabric Designs. He followed Rob W's advice, which is on our website, about including a very thin printed border to assist in lining up the edges. He used GIMP, which is not offensive.
No, it's free. It's free software. It's a free alternative to Photoshop.
Yeah, I use it. I'm terrible at it. And I know, if you're watching YouTube and I keep scratching my back, I have like this little line of sweat going down the back of it's making me stick, and it itches like crazy, and I'm sorry. I'm sorry, YouTube guy. What's his name? We have to refer to him from now on. What's his name who found us on YouTube? Michael. I'm sorry, Michael. Don't look at me right now. It's driving me nuts. I want to change my shirt. Anyways, he used GIMP as the software, and it turned out great. The slight stretchiness of the performance knit fabric was not an issue with that thin border present. He made 3 panels so far and mounted them on his back wall. Since he's very happy with the results, he's going to proceed with his side wall panels next. So he did a Jaws poster somehow.
Yeah.
Awesome. And I just love when you see the inside of the panel and the acoustic the rock wool, it's all tore up and...
Oh, yeah.
I was like, exactly. Like, who cares what's inside there? So,
pretty much. And then, he's got a before and after of his theater. So before.
Yeah, looks great.
He's got posters on his walls, but those were not acoustic posters. And those are still remaining on the side walls, but now he's added the acoustic posters that he's made to his back wall. So
yeah, one looks like The Dark Knight, too, doesn't it?
Yep. So what he did so that My Fabric Designs was willing to print them is he took all the text off. It's just the images, and that was good enough to avoid the copyright problem. So they do not say Terminator and Jaws and Batman Begins, but it's the imagery without any of the text.
There you go.
Before
so he's
and
doing
after.
So he's doing some renovations in the house, and he's thinking of including a change to the front wall of his theater. His room is 12.5 wide by 18 feet long by 6 foot 8 inches high. Wow, that's a perfect size for me. I'll never bump my head. And his primary front row is currently 9 feet from a 65-inch OLED. So not too far away, as we like to say. He'd like to have some storage in the theater plus a larger screen. He worked out that a 92-inch screen would be just about perfect, which obviously implies a projector. But he's a bit concerned that since he's used to an OLED now, that it might be a step backwards in image quality. The render of the new front wall was made, but he would alter that to have a center speaker on top of the shelves and closer in height to ear level. I mean, to ear level. Ear level, yeah, whatever. Yeah. Could we help him decide what to do? What would be the pros and cons of going projection versus OLED? And if we're able to get specific, what brand and model of display would we recommend to him? JVC. So if you're going to go from an OLED, I think you have to go JVC, which is expensive.
But does he even go from OLED? Because
if you're thinking of putting a piece of furniture in here anyway, put a piece of furniture with a big old OLED on it. That's what I say, and move it forward.
That's just the thing, because we talked about, the JVC NX5, that's $5,500. Then you're going to add a screen, so you're over $6,000. Yeah. $6,000 can get you the 83-inch C1 OLED, which is where I would point you anyway.
Foot. Move it forward a foot because you're on that piece of furniture. I know. Bob's your uncle. Like do the furniture without the screen behind it and put an OLED on top of it in the center inside of it, and you're done.
Yeah, or the furniture could include even an articulated mount if you really wanted to, or the furniture could be a 3-in-1 stand, and therefore the TV isn't physically mounted to the wall. It's mounted to that piece of furniture a foot or two forward. Now 83 inches all of a sudden from 7.5 or 8 feet away. I'm like, do we need a projector? And the price is actually lower at that point versus getting a JVC projector. So I'm kind of leading that you get an 83-inch, and I would definitely point you at the C1 instead of paying the $8,500 for the Sony version, because I don't care about 100 more nits. I just don't care.
Yeah, this is I don't know if I've even finished writing it, but I started an article that's like why I'll never own another projector, probably. And this is why. The prices have just come down so far that, and you can get all the things. Like, you're like, okay, Dolby Vision, thing of the past, because I got a projector, right? That brightness I was used to, nope, can't do that anymore. Right. Projector.
The truly perfect black.
Yeah, nope, sorry. How do you feel about real dark gray? Because it's a projector, and that's the thing. Especially when somebody's like, I'm going from a plasma, what projector should I get? You should get an OLED. Sorry.
Now that 83-inch size exists, I'm like, man, you can get because 92 was the biggest he was going to go. So I'm like, okay, granted, it's 9 inches smaller diagonally, but like I say, you put it on a mount instead of right on the wall, it's 1 foot closer. Like,
I'm 8 feet from a 92-inch, and I'm like, nah, my next one's going to be like 75, 77, or whatever size is in that screen, in that range. Oh. It's going to be on a piece of furniture, and it's going to be in the room. Yeah. Bertrand in Quebec. Bertrand. First up, Rob was correct when he speculated that Bertrand's issue with his Martin Logan Motion Series Center is that he can tell the sound is coming from below the screen rather than it seeming like the sound is coming from the actor's lips. He's going to give our positioning and aiming suggestions a try, but should he try things with just a phantom center? What if it sounds a lot better for the one main seat in the middle, but considerably worse for the other seats? That's not an inconceivable thing to have happen.
Indeed, especially he's in quite a compact theater, so with the speakers, they're only about 6.5 feet away from him, so it's like, 3-seater couch going across. That means the left and right speakers are basically right in front of the side seats. You probably will notice that is.
I would think so as well, and I'll be honest with you, I don't know that I would. I would. It costs nothing to try it.
Yeah, absolutely, give it a try for sure.
Go into your receiver, but I would definitely be very I would block out some time.
Sure.
Because you're going to want to adjust the tone of these speakers.
Yeah.
Consider, maybe a number of times.
Yeah.
Just to see if you can't lock this in.
Well, it's I mean, again, we're repeating ourselves a bit from last week, but we specifically talked about how with the center speaker in his case being the folded ribbon tweeter with the narrow dispersion that it has, that he might end up with the best results actually aiming it above his head, raking it up so much that it actually fires above his head. So he's going to try that, but a similar thing is going to apply to the toe-in of your left and right speakers if you try to do phantom center and still have it sound reasonable in the seats to your left and right. Because you might find, because this is what I find in my theater, I'm in a pretty similar situation. I'm using ribbon tweeters, sitting very close to them in my tiny theater. And in order for me to get somewhat wider of a sweet spot instead of just one very narrow little spot right dead in the middle, I toe in my left and right speakers so heavily that if a line was coming out of them, it would actually intersect in front of my seats. So that my left and right are toed in really, really heavily. So basically the front right speaker is kind of aiming straight at my leftmost seat, and my front left speaker is kind of aiming straight at my rightmost seat. And that means the left seat is like quite off axis from the front left speaker. So it's getting less response from that one and more direct response from the right one, and that kind of widens the sweet spot, gives you a better phantom image for the left and right seats. So there could be a whole lot of raking and towing in experimentation in your future, Bertrand, but that's the fun of owning a new home theater.
That's right. His initial response to his dual SVS SB1000 Pro subs is that he's a bit disappointed. Do we know how big his room is?
Yeah, it's in the diagram below. Oh, shoot. It's really small, and it's hard to see. It's an old diagram, but I'm going to have to look up the image in the It
thingy. Looks like 12 feet, 4 inches by 14.7.
That sounds about right. Yep.
Okay.
So it's not a huge room by any means.
And we don't know or do know. There's a door. Yeah, it says
door at the back. Yeah, door at the back.
Okay. All right, let me go find this.
All right.
So he's a bit disappointed. They aren't pressurizing his room the way he expected, but he knows how much we talk about complications of getting bass just right, so he's hoping we can help him sort it out. He doesn't have his planned corner traps installed yet. Will they fix things? Probably not. Not necessarily.
I don't know if Tom is talking or not.
I am talking. I talked.
Okay.
I said that will they fix things? I said no.
I agree. Bass traps, corner bass traps, those can help you as low as 80 hertz, and that's really important because that's the whole crossover between your subwoofer and speakers. That's why we really want them. But for the deep bass, corner bass traps aren't going to make a difference.
So he's got front left corner placement of a subwoofer. It's what it says on here, and back right placement of a subwoofer. The front one looks like it's, I mean, if this is correct, if this is all to scale, which it looks like he tried to do. The front one is right on the wall. The other one is in the room a little bit.
Yeah, they're not perfectly diagonally opposite. Right. They're close to it, but not quite.
He also let Odyssey Sub EQ HT just do its thing. It gave a slightly different distance between the settings for the two subs, and then it gave both subs some pretty low trim levels around -10. So is it as simple as boosting those trim levels manually? No, but that does indicate to me that we've got some other issues that we can talk about.
There's probably a hump at some point. And unfortunately, what it did was react to the trim level overall in response to that hump. So I mean, chances are if you did nothing else besides manually raise your trim level, you would probably like the results. But there is almost certainly going to be one or more frequencies where it goes way too loud,
right?
and that could happen. But if you did absolutely nothing else, that's not the worst thing for you to try. Because I mean, hey, if it doesn't work out great, you can always put it back. That's not really a problem,
right? So he hasn't used the SVS app. Would that help anything? Well, if you knew where the hump is,
yeah, you could use EQ.
You could cut it down. So the problem is now. Okay, this is, don't worry about the speaker time, but anyway, okay, whatever. So this to me sounds like a couple of things are happening that we would recommend not happen. One is that like you said, you're letting Odyssey run itself, and basically dual
Yep, the two independent subs saying I have two subs, sub EQ HT.
We would prefer that you do it as mono, okay? And that is because in both subs getting the same, and again, Rob's got his 12-step guide. You can follow the first couple of steps and they'll take you through. I've also got a subwoofer EQ calibration article in AV Gadgets that you can follow, that instead of using an SPL meter or a Room EQ Wizard, it's a way of using your Odyssey auto setup to do it.
And I do agree with the recommendations that some people have said. Home Theater Gurus, if you look up their videos, I think it's videos 9 and 10, where he's going through, like, if you're willing to just download an app on your phone, just a real-time analyzer or an FFT, a fast Fourier transform, that, if you want a visual indicator without going all the way into Room EQ Wizard, that's another way you can come at it too. All the methods, the one that Tom wrote up, the one that I wrote up in my 12-step guide, the visual method using an app that Home Theater Gurus talked about, we're all coming at it from the same approach, which is that you're gonna end up doing some trial and error, and you're gonna end up basically messing around with the phase knob, since thankfully your subs have fully variable phase. So, I mean, I know Bertrand was hoping, he's like, I'm pretty close to the front left corner, pretty close to the rear right corner. Hopefully I put them there. That's one of the recommended placements and I don't have to do anything else. Well, turns out you have to do something else, Bertrand. You didn't luck out to the point that you got, really nice uniform linear response quite that easily. So That's the reason all three of those guides exist, with slight variations, but really the same approach, theoretically the same approach. And I think you're going to have to go through it.
Yeah. The other thing is, too, I know the diagrams for Odyssey and all the terminology suggests that you go from seat to seat to seat. And you've got a 3-seater couch, it looks like, and you're probably going from seat to seat to seat and measuring. Go back and you can listen to our Kris Kyriakakis interview where we talk about this, or you can just take our word for it. You want the microphone to be the first position to be in your main center seat, directly in front of your center channel, the main seat between the equidistant between the two front speakers, 12 inches from any barrier. And that includes the couch itself, the back of the couch. Yes, your head is going to be on that back of that couch, but that's not where you're going to measure it. And then you're going to measure it in about anywhere from a 12 to 18-inch radius around that. Those are where the seats are for the measurements. Because if you're measuring way off to the sides, because this room is not that wide, and your seats have arms between them because they're traditional home theater seats, you're going so far wide that you're now going to get some readings that are going to mess stuff up, which might be why Odyssey is making this is cutting this thing down.
Yeah,
because you're getting massive humps in these side seats and maybe a bit of a dip in the center seat,
possibly.
So it can't do everything, but it's got to fix those big humps, so it knocks everything down. Then you sit in the center seat and go, I can't hear anything. It doesn't sound.
And
very
honestly,
good.
This is the reason why I understand when there's people who are like, Odyssey isn't that good, or you need subwoofers that are way bigger than the stuff that other people recommend. I'm like, it's not really true. I know exactly where they're coming from, because that's the way it's marketed.
Yeah.
That's the way you're hoping it's going to work. It doesn't work that way instantly in a lot of cases. I mean, I wish it weren't quite as trial and error and having to go through quite as many steps as all three of our guides end up recommending to you. But the whole reason those came about is because, unfortunately, that's the reality. Bass is difficult to deal with.
Odyssey would just put out a mono mode, I would just be. I mean, it would solve all this. Like it would level match the two subwoofers independently, and then switch to mono mode. And I'd be like,
and it's almost there.
You.
It's almost there already.
It's close. If we keep asking Logitech to fix it, maybe they'll fix it. I mean, they told us that we're going to get 100% support.
Sure.
Customer satisfaction is their goal. So how does he get his Marantz SR8015 to show its volume in reference level rather than the all positive numbers? Yeah, I had to do this as well. It's in the settings under volume someplace, and it's stupid. I mean, Honestly, I think both of them are stupid, but at least I've used the reference one so long
Well,
that
at least
now
you know
it makes
what
sense to
zero
me,
is, yeah.
but it doesn't make any sense to anybody else.
Not
So,
really. But yeah, at least this one's a little bit better than the TCL Roku home menu, because at least you go into the settings. That makes sense. You go into the audio section. That actually kind of makes sense. And under the audio section, there's the volume section, which has a subsection for scale. And the scale lets you choose either from 0 to 98, which is the default. That's what you're seeing, all positive numbers, or negative 79.5 to positive 18. That is the relative scale where 0 will be equal to reference level. So, yep, that's a simple audio, volume, scale.
right. All right. Sorry. He has tried playing 7 or so Ultra. 7 is a very specific number. I don't have 7 or so. Ultra HD Blu-ray movies on his Panasonic UB820 player. He's somewhat frequently getting errors, either some obvious glitches during playback, or sometimes he'll just get an error message right away. Cannot read. Please check disk. What would be causing that? Anything you can do. If this was an older player, I would say that the laser, whatever it is dirty and needs to be cleaned. You put one of those discs in there that has like the little brushes on it that does it. I've got one from my old CD days. Or that your discs themselves have smudges on them from fingerprints or something like that. This is a new...
Yep.
Says I would say return this thing and get another one.
Yep.
Is what I would say.
You got a bum unit, Bertrand. That's what happened. This happened to, it happened to me and it happened to my parents, which was on the LG players. Got a bum unit the first time, swapped it out, just a straight exchange at the store for the exact same model, didn't change models or anything like that. Second one worked perfectly fine. So unfortunately, I mean, we pretty much trust Panasonic. They're almost the only game left in town for Ultra HD Blu-ray players, but you got a bum unit. That really is all this is. It truly is as simple as that. It sucks. That's bad luck, but exchange it, because you're definitely within the exchange window still.
Right. Matt says in his basement setup, he has both a BenQ HT3550 4K DLP projector and a TCL 4 Series TV. Both can do 4K 60 and HDR10. His receiver is a Denon S930H. His sources are an NVidia Shield, outputting 4K 60, 420. With HDR10, I know those are a bunch of numbers, don't worry about it, and a gaming PC outputting 4K 60 RGB, and a PS4 outputting 1080p. His sources are all plugged into his Denon with monoprice certified premium high-speed HDMI cables. He uses fiber optic HDMI cables to connect to his projector and TV. They are Rui Pro brand fiber optic, rated for 18 gigabits per second, 10 meters, 30 feet running to his projector and 20 meters running to his TV. He's getting signal dropouts, but here is the really strange part. His NVIDIA Shield almost never has problems. His PC does, but only occasionally. The majority of his dropouts happen with the PS4. More often than not, it has problems, but it's outputting the least amount of bandwidth, only 1080p versus 4K 60 from both the Shield and the PC. So with the Shield working almost perfectly, he's having a hard time believing it's the problem with any of his HDMI cables. He's tried using an HT-based T adapter with Cat 6 A Ethernet cables at one point, and the situation remained the same. He does use both displays at the same time. He knows that if he turned off his TV first, his projector would always wig out. So he tried adding a Blackbird HDMI splitter and only using the monitor one output of his Denon. That seemed to have helped a little. He can have both displays going on and then turn off the TV without his projector wigging out anymore. But the dropouts from his PS4 and sometimes his PC are still happening. So do we have any ideas? Would an HD Fury help with this? Boy, this sounds like HDMI handshaking thingies going on to me more than anything else, but I don't know why that would be.
I mean, I have two suspects. I don't know to what extent he's already tried to troubleshoot this.
He's done a lot.
Now, my primary suspect of all things is like literally just the cable that goes from your PS4 to your Denon. Because if that's the source that's giving you the problems, I'm like, even though it's certified, I mean, certified is just batch certified. It's not like every individual cable was individually tested.
Right.
But I mean, maybe he tried to troubleshoot that. But I mean, that's as simple as, okay, your NVIDIA Shield seems to pretty much never have problems. Just plug the PS4 into the same HDMI cable and the same Denon input as the NVIDIA Shield and see if that continues.
Because
if that fixes it, then either it's the HDMI cable itself, or it could be the particular HDMI input on the Denon. That can happen.
Some of them aren't rated for the same things, but the PS4 is only putting on 1080p. It seems like
I mean, there could be a bit of a malfunction going on with that particular input. Sure. Which would not be great, but as long as you have other inputs.
I want to blame HDMI CEC. Can I do that? Let's blame that.
That seems pretty unlikely. So
I wanna.
I mean, one thing I would try to do is unplug the fiber optic HDMI cable that, at the moment it's plugged into the Blackbird splitter, and the splitter is being fed by the Denon. But what I'm getting at is plug the fiber optic HDMI cable straight into your PS4. Both of them, both the 20 meter and the 10 meter. Because if you get a signal from the PS4 to your projector through that fiber optic, and a signal from your PS4 to your TV through that fiber optic separately, and everything works fine there, then, try that with all three of your sources and make sure that those fiber optic cables aren't to blame, because hopefully they aren't. Those are the most expensive and most difficult ones to replace if they're the problem. Now, as long as they're fine, then, we're basically just going through regular troubleshooting, aren't we? Because we want to find out, is the problem the Denon? Because it could be the Denon. It's not impossible that the Denon is having some kind of issue.
I hate troubleshooting HDMI problems.
It
always involves you taking like one source that you know is working and then plugging different cables into different devices and over again. It's just... troubleshooting HDMI always stinks. Sorry, Michael, I have to scratch my back again.
But there's no real other way around it. That's kind of what we have to do at this point. It is strange that the lowest bandwidth, lowest resolution signal is the one giving you the most problems.
It screams a cable, though. It really does scream a cable.
It does. Like the one that's connected to the PS4 itself. That's what that suggests to me. Hopefully it's that simple, because that's certainly the cheapest and easiest thing to replace.
Right. A lot of times what we assume is that those short runs we can just use any old cable, and most of the time that's true, but it might be that you need new cables there. That's what I would guess as well. I don't really see anything else that would do this.
Yeah, like as long as, direct connection to all of your sources, those fiber optic ones are working, that's great. We've ruled that out. It really shouldn't be necessary in your scenario to have any type of HDMI splitter or HD Fury device. If you were in the situation we've come across where, it's a 1080p projector and a 4K television, okay, that's going to be a different scenario. But here, both of your displays can do 4K 60. They can both do HDR10. If you were trying to send Dolby Vision out of your NVIDIA Shield to your TCL and not to your projector, okay, that would be a bit of a problem. But he's aware of that. He set his Shield to HDR10 only, not Dolby Vision.
It's not impossible that when you unplug, like turn off one of these devices, that the HDMI handshake just freaks out because something is off now and stuff. So I can kind of see where it might happen, because HDMI can be that way.
It's true.
It's like you and I both know it shouldn't.
Yeah.
And everybody over the HDMI group is like, nah, that won't happen. And then we all go, but it did. And then they're like,
yeah.
HDMI CEC. I know we want to all blame it, but I don't think that's what's going on here. But I really do want to blame it.
The only other thing I can point to is if you do come across any problems with a source connected straight to the fiber optic going to the display, carry one of the sources, because none of your sources are gigantic and heavy. Carry one of them over to your display, plug it in with one of the short HDMI cables, and just make sure it isn't the input on either of the displays, because this is also not completely impossible that the HDMI input on the display itself has a problem. But yeah, it's just straight up regular methodical troubleshooting. Please only change one thing at a time, because if you try to troubleshoot and you change more than one thing at a time, you will never get anywhere. You must make one change at a time, which means it's tedious and takes time, but it's the only way to do it.
Yeah. Usually I like to work my way backwards.
Yep.
So, if you have this one chain, like what Rob said, the easiest thing to do is just to go up to your NVIDIA Shield, unplug the NVIDIA Shield HDMI cable from the NVIDIA Shield and plug it into the PS4 and see what happens. If that works, then you take the PS4 and you start walking it around to different stuff.
Right.
And plugging into different things and seeing because that would be my guess. All right, John. John would like to show some movies outside on his back patio in the summer, during the summer. I guess I That's not going to happen here at Bucks. Too many bucks. He wants to keep the price low, about $500. He's got the audio side of things covered with some Bluetooth speakers, so he's just looking for a screen and projector suggestion. 100 inches would be nice for the screen size, and 1080p is fine for the projector. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of you can spend some money on this. I mean, it's not that hard to spend some money on this. You could also just find a big wall and project it up on that. I mean, we're not going for a high fidelity out here, right? I mean, you're using Bluetooth speakers to begin with.
I haven't come across
I'm already
too
telling
many
myself
exterior walls that are not either slatted siding or textured stucco. So
but
a little something smoother than that would be nice.
Even with that, you could just take get a nice big white fabric and stretch it out over that. But Rob's, I'm sure, has got some suggestions for you.
Well, yeah, the screen wise, there's kind of only one place I would point you, and that's Carl's Place, because Carl's Place is all about outdoor screens. Just get their regular white, their flexi white, which is PVC. You can literally wash it off with a hose. It's very durable. I would go ahead and get the one where they put on the black border and some grommets, because then you can hang it as long as you can put fasteners of some type somewhere. You can hang it, or you could always just bungee cord it to any type of frame that you construct. It's really quite easy. It's the cheapest possible to just get the raw flexi white material, but I think it's worth having them put on the border with the grommets. So weirdly, in their cart, they don't have a 100-inch size. They jump from 92 to 120. I have no idea why. It's very weird. But either go smaller or bigger. Anyway, the 120-inch size, because I figure you'll probably end up erring on the side of going bigger rather than smaller, $125. So that's not too bad. Really nice material, very durable, easy to wash, and having it finished is worth it. So $125 for that. Now, the projector, I'm like, first of all, if it's going outside, you've got to go DLP. Please don't go LCD. LCD is the light path is not sealed. DLP, the light path is sealed. So there's no way that dust and bugs can get into the light path of a DLP. There are vents. Something could get into the vents, but it's not going to get into the actual light path where it's impossible to clean. You can clean out the rest of the projector if need be. So you got to go DLP. And these days, you're going to want to get something that's pretty nice and bright and half decent. Optima's HD 146X. That's the one I would point you to. Its list price is $550. So I've kind of blown your budget if you get it list price. But even right on Amazon, they have the warehouse deals where they're somebody returned it. And that can get you down to $450 or $400 real quick. So regardless, I'm probably going to have you going $50 to $100 over your initial $500 budget. But this is pretty darn impressive performance for $600, let's call it. And I think it's really worth it, because once you try to get to a $350 or $400 projector, you're giving up a lot. A lot. Whereas this Optima HD 146X, I'd be pretty happy with that. You'd be perfectly fine using it in your basement too. I think it's easily worth the little bit extra money.
Okay. Our last question of the day, and I have to be done by 1, so we're going to answer this one and be done.
Quick.
Martin's room is 12 by 13. His seating is a 3-seater couch. He's got a Denon X3600H. Receiver powering a 5.1.4 setup at the moment. Q acoustic speakers for the floor level, and then KEF satellite speaker package for front and rear heights. His subwoofer is a KEF PSW 2010 that he's had for over 15 years, and he wants an upgrade. He found some offers for used SVS PB1000 subs, possibly due to the new models just coming out. He could afford to buy those right now. If he does so, and it turns out the PB1000s are harder to come by in the future, would he be able to pair it with a new... so he says offer for used subs, but he's only going to buy one of them. Could he pair it with the new PB1000 Pro, or maybe the SB1000 Pro? Or do we think the single PB1000 will be all he needs? Well, only if you care about only one seat, and even then. Okay, we've already discussed the size of room, and you don't need a PB1000. And if you're going to get a PB1000, you're going to build a cardboard box the size of a PB1000 and put it in your room.
You use that augmented reality that's right on SVS's website.
Right.
That's a fun way to come at it.
Yeah, I still think you should build. I think the building of the box
There's
is
nothing like having the
superior.
physical thing in the room with you.
It is bigger than you think it's going to be. You need an SB1000 in here. That's what you need. We'll crush this room. Absolutely. But if you can fit the PB1000 and later on you get a PB1000 Pro, they will work just fine together. Or the SB1000 Pro probably be fine as well.
Now, the thing is, we don't know for 100% certain that Martin's room is actually enclosed. Because, I mean, in his email, he provided the dimensions, but many times people provide the dimensions of the rooms, and it turns out it actually has a permanent opening, and we do not know. If this is an enclosed room, there is zero question. You won't get anywhere near the maximum headroom of either the original 1000 or the 1000 Pro, which means they can totally work fine together. You'll never come even remotely close to reaching the headroom output capabilities of either of those subs. So they're well within spec for either of them. If it's actually, 12 by 13, but the entire back is open to the rest of your house, well, now we're into a slightly different situation, and the PB1000 Pro would be able to play louder than the 1000. But the SVS subs, they don't bottom out. They don't grossly distort. They protect themselves with that DSP protection, and you're still not in a terrible situation. So, bottom line, you're like, hey, I've seen a bunch of 1000s that are used, that are for sale. I can buy one right now, and that's great. No problem adding one of the current Pro model subs to it later. I mean, I would probably keep ported with ported if I had my druthers, but no problem.
Yeah, I would too, but I mean, I don't think you're going to notice the difference between the two. Not in your room. 12 by 13 just screams bedroom. That's why I kind of assumed that it was closed. All right, that's it for the questions this week. We want to thank our listeners of the week. We want to thank Bob for going to avrant.com and clicking on the Buy Us a Cup of Coffee link and leaving us a PayPal donation, as well as our 126 patrons over at patreon.com, including Max and Bertrand. Thank you.
Yes, thank you for the financial support, Bob. Thank you for the PayPal donation, and patreon.com/AVRant podcast. If anyone would like to sign up for an automatic monthly donation, big thanks to our 126 patrons over there, including Max and Bertrand.
We want to thank Kris for talking us up to Accessories for Less, John for talking us up to Emotiva and Rhythmic, and Clara for kind of mentioning us to Gary Cubian of SVS. So thank you.
Yes, Kris, John, and Clara, thank you very much for the support, talking us up to retailers and brands. And I won't mind if people want to reach out to Gary and keep that thought in his head of buying Harmony.
That's right. And Michael and Reginald sent me photos to be used on AV gadgets, so thank you for that. As well as our notes of
thank you, Michael and Reginald.
Okay, and notes of gratitude for keeping the podcast going from Kris, Greg, Bob, Michael, Jason, Bertrand, John, and Martin.
That's right, Kris, Greg, Bob, Michael, Jason, Bertrand, John, and Martin. We do appreciate those notes of encouragement and gratitude for keeping the podcast going. It's really been nice this whole time. I think we've done a pretty darn good job of keeping this podcast rolling throughout this whole thing. We're happy to have done it, and we're glad people appreciate it, and that's really, really nice. And thank you to everyone who continues to listen and send in your questions.
That's right. If you want to get your question answered, all you have to do is ask. You ask by emailing us at question@avrant.com. For AVRant, I'm Tom Andry.
And I'm Rob H. Now stay in and listen to something.
Want your question answered? Send it to question@avrant.com. This is AVRant.
Now go out and listen to something.